What if I told you that every small thing you do today is quietly building the person you will be for the rest of your life? It sounds dramatic, maybe even uncomfortable, but that's exactly why you need to hear it. Because while most people search for one giant breakthrough, the truth is that your future identity is being shaped right now in the invisible spaces of your day. The moments you assume don't matter. The moments you treat as forgettable. The moments you think no one sees, but those moments are forming you, slowly, consistently, unavoidably. Think about this: you don't become disciplined overnight. You don't become confident in a single spark. You don't become wise from one powerful conversation. You become these things because of what you repeatedly do. Your habits are rehearsals for the life you will eventually live. And whether you realize it or not, you are practicing something every day. Some people practice excuses. Some practice procrastination. Some practice fear. Some practice waiting for motivation. And others, just a small minority, practice becoming unstoppable. But here is the part no one tells you: your identity is not formed by the big decisions you announce to the world. It's formed by the small decisions you make in silence. The decision to wake up when your mind says sleep. The decision to focus when your emotions say quit. The decision to move when your fear says hide. These small choices build the architecture of your character brick by brick, day by day. People love dramatic success stories, but they ignore the boring routines that created them. They want the spotlight without the silent work. But the spotlight only reveals who you've already become. It cannot make you something you're not. And if you want to become someone extraordinary, you need to make extraordinary decisions in the most ordinary moments. So ask yourself, what am I practicing today? What identity am I rehearsing? Because if you repeat something long enough, it becomes your default. If you choose something consistently enough, it becomes your identity. And if you protect something deliberately enough, it becomes your destiny. The world won't decide who you become. Your habits will. Your choices will. Your daily routine will. And the moment you take that seriously is the moment your entire life begins to shift. Not in one explosion, but in a powerful, steady transformation that you create one invisible decision at a time. Every day, you are quietly writing the story of who you will become, even when it feels like nothing significant is happening. Most people underestimate the power of repetition because they think growth should feel dramatic, loud, or instantly rewarding. But real transformation is subtle at first. It begins in those small decisions you make when no one is watching. The decisions that reveal your true commitment. You might think discipline appears suddenly, but it grows slowly, like a seed that learns to push through the soil long before anyone sees the sprout. You don't notice the progress at first, but it's happening beneath the surface, shaping you in ways you won't recognize until much later. The question is not whether you are growing. The question is what direction you are growing in. Because you are always moving somewhere. You are either moving toward strength or moving toward weakness, toward courage or toward fear, toward purpose or toward distraction. And the scary part is that most people drift into the wrong version of themselves without even realizing it. They wake up one day disappointed by who they've become, not understanding that every day beforehand was quietly shaping that outcome. Your identity doesn't arrive suddenly, it accumulates, it stacks, it layers. And each day you add another layer. If you want to change your life, stop focusing on the finish line and start focusing on the next step, the next choice, the next habit, the next moment where you get to decide whether you honor your future self or betray it. Because every decision tilts your identity in one direction or the other. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be intentional. You just have to be the kind of person who shows up even when it feels inconvenient, uncomfortable, or slow. Remember this: your future self is not waiting for motivation. Your future self is waiting for consistency. The version of you that you dream about is built through repetition, repeating the mindset, the routines, the effort, and the self-respect required to create a meaningful life. It will never be built in one breakthrough moment. It will be built in thousands of small, quiet victories that no one claps for. So ask yourself today, what am I repeating? What patterns am I strengthening? What habits am I rehearsing? Because whatever you repeat becomes normal. Whatever becomes normal becomes identity, and identity shapes destiny. If you want a different destiny, start practicing the version of yourself that can create it, not tomorrow, not eventually. Today, in the smallest moments that seem insignificant but matter more than anything else. Every small decision you make today carries the weight of your potential, and when you choose intention over impulse, you reclaim control of your story and prove to yourself that growth is within reach. There's a moment in everyone's life when they finally understand that the person they want to become isn't waiting somewhere far away in the future. That person is being sculpted right now, not through giant leaps, but through the smallest commitments you keep with yourself. And one of the biggest truths people avoid is this: your daily actions are either building your future or breaking it. There is no neutral. Even resting is intentional when it's aligned with your purpose. But drifting, delaying, and abandoning your priorities, those are choices too. Choices that carry consequences far beyond today. Most people think their life will change when the world finally gives them an opportunity. They wait for a sign, a burst of motivation, someone to believe in them, or the perfect timing. But opportunities don't shape you, your preparation does. Doors don't open for people who simply want success. They open for those who've been practicing the habits required to handle that success long before it arrives. When you prepare daily, the world can't help but call your name. But when you don't, even the biggest opportunity will slip through your fingers because you never became the person capable of holding on to it. Think back to a time when you promised yourself you'd make a change. Maybe you said you'd get healthy or learn a new skill or build something meaningful. Maybe for a moment you felt excited and unstoppable. But then the excitement faded and you returned to your old patterns. You didn't fail because you were incapable. You fell back because you continued practicing an identity that couldn't support the future you wanted. You rehearsed the habits of your past more than the habits of your potential. But here's the good news: identity is not fixed. It's flexible. It's shapeable. You can outgrow the version of yourself that keeps holding you back. You can become someone stronger, more focused, more courageous, and more committed than anything you've ever been. But the shift won't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in the daily work, in showing up when you don't feel like it, in honoring promises no matter how small they seem. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. You just need to choose one habit, one action, one small decision that aligns with your highest self, and repeat it until it feels natural. Over time, those small decisions compound into confidence, clarity, and momentum. Eventually, you won't have to force yourself to grow. You'll have become someone who grows naturally. And that is when everything changes, not because the world finally believed in you, but because you finally believed in yourself enough to practice the person you were meant to become. There's a powerful shift that happens the moment you finally understand that your life is not shaped by occasional inspiration, but by the standards you set for yourself every single day. Standards are not goals. Goals live in the future. Standards live in your behavior. Goals say, I want to be fit. Standards say, I don't skip workouts. Goals say, I want to be confident. Standards say, I speak up even when my voice shakes. Goals are desires. Standards are identity. And the truth is, your standards are always telling the truth about who you really are, long before your achievements ever do. Most people live with temporary motivation but permanent excuses. They rise for a moment, then fall back into the patterns that feel comfortable. Not because they are weak, but because they have never demanded more from themselves than the bare minimum. They have never raised the standard of how they show up. But your life will only rise to the standards you are willing to enforce. Not sometimes. Not only when it's easy every day, especially on the days when your mind tries to negotiate with your purpose. Think about the people you admire, the ones who inspire you, the ones who seem unshakable, the ones who live with purpose. They aren't superhuman. They just have standards that don't collapse under pressure. They don't wait for motivation. They don't need perfect conditions. They've trained themselves to show up consistently, even when they don't feel powerful. And because of that, they become powerful. There's a story many people overlook, the story of the silent daily choice. The choice to honor a commitment when no one else sees. The choice to push a little farther when giving up seems easier. The choice to focus when distraction is tempting. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you raise your standard. Every time you choose growth over excuses, you raise your standard. And every time you choose action over hesitation, you raise your standard. Those choices build momentum, and momentum builds identity. And here's the truth you must accept. You cannot become a stronger version of yourself while keeping the same standards that made you weak. If you want a different outcome, you need to demand a different level of effort, a different level of honesty, a different level of intention. You must decide that the person you want to become is worth the discomfort, the discipline, and the sacrifice required. When you raise your standards, life doesn't immediately get easier, but you get stronger. And when you become stronger, suddenly the challenges that once controlled you become the very challenges that shape you. There comes a point when you realize that change doesn't begin with a new plan, a new year, or a new burst of motivation. It begins with a new level of honesty. Not honesty with the world, honesty with yourself. Because the hardest person to confront is the one you see in the mirror. You can convince others with your words, but you can only convince yourself with your actions. And deep down, you always know when you're giving less than you're capable of. You always know when you're settling, when you're avoiding, when you're delaying the life you say you want. That quiet awareness isn't your enemy. It's your invitation. It's the moment your future self whispers, you can do better, and you know it. But most people avoid that truth because honesty requires responsibility. It's easier to blame time, circumstances, or other people. It's easier to wait for a sign. It's easier to hope things will change on their own. But nothing changes until you do. Nothing evolves until you stop protecting your limitations and start protecting your potential. And the moment you take responsibility, everything shifts, not because the world becomes easier, but because you finally decide to stop getting in your own way. Honesty forces you to face the habits that are harming you, the late night choices, the wasted hours, the distractions you pretend are harmless, the commitments you break because no one will notice. But every unnoticed choice shapes you. Every silent compromise weakens the foundation of your future. And you know that. You feel it. That's why honesty is uncomfortable. It exposes the gap between the life you talk about and the life you actually live. But here's where honesty becomes power. Once you admit the gap exists, you can close it. You can rebuild your habits. You can rewrite your patterns. You can reintroduce discipline where you've allowed comfort to take over. You can choose alignment over avoidance. You can choose identity over impulse. You can choose the version of yourself that you refuse to postpone any longer. The moment you stop lying to yourself, about your effort, your priorities, your excuses. That is the moment your life begins to accelerate. Not because you suddenly become stronger, but because you stop pretending you're weaker than you truly are. You stop acting like you have unlimited time. You stop living like your dreams can wait. And you start showing up like the future depends on what you do today, because it does. Honesty doesn't make the journey easier. It makes you unstoppable. There's a truth about growth that many people avoid because it feels uncomfortable. You cannot become the person you want to be while holding on to the habits of the person you used to be. Growth is not just about adding new routines. It's about letting go of the behaviors, beliefs, and comforts that no longer serve you. And letting go is hard. It feels like losing a part of yourself. But what you're really losing is the version of you that was never meant to carry you into your future. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. You are shedding what's small to make room for what's possible. The challenge is that old habits are familiar, and familiar feels safe. Even if those habits keep you stuck, there's a strange comfort in routines you've lived with for years. The mind loves what is predictable, even if it limits you. That's why many people stay exactly where they are, not because they lack ambition, but because they cling to the comfort of patterns that quietly sabotage their potential. And every day you repeat an old habit, you reinforce an old identity. But at some point, you must make a decision: do you want to be comfortable, or do you want to be transformed? You cannot have both. The moment you choose transformation, something powerful happens. You begin to challenge your own narrative. You stop accepting the story that says, "This is just who I am." No, it's who you were. And who you were doesn't get to dictate who you become. Breaking old patterns isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about noticing the moment you're slipping into an old behavior and choosing differently. Even if the choice is uncomfortable, even if it feels slow, even if your mind resists. Every time you interrupt an old pattern, you weaken it. And every time you choose a new pattern, you strengthen it. Over time, the old version of you loses its power, and the new version begins to take shape. And here's the part most people don't realize: letting go is an act of courage. It means trusting that the person you're becoming is worth the temporary discomfort. It means believing that the future you want is real, even if you can't see it yet. It means stepping into unfamiliar territory with faith instead of fear. Growth requires release. It requires sacrifice. It requires a decision to stop feeding the habits that shrink your potential. You cannot rise while holding on to what is pulling you down. When you finally let go of the old, you free your hands to build the new. And that is where transformation truly begins. There's a powerful moment in your journey when you finally realize that discipline isn't punishment. It's protection. It protects your future from the impulses of your present. It protects your goals from the weight of your excuses. It protects your potential from being buried under temporary emotions. Most people misunderstand discipline because they see it as restriction, something that limits their freedom. But the truth is the opposite. Discipline is the very thing that sets you free. Free from inconsistency, free from regret, free from the chaos of living a life controlled by feelings instead of purpose. Think about how often emotions try to sabotage you. You don't feel like getting up early. You don't feel like working out. You don't feel like studying, practicing, building, or pushing yourself. And if you only act when you feel like it, you will repeat the same cycles again and again because feelings are unreliable. Discipline is what moves you forward when your emotions try to trap you. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. People admire those who are consistent, but they rarely see the price of that consistency. They don't see the nights when motivation was gone, but the commitment remained. They don't see the mornings when excuses were loud, but effort was louder. They don't see the internal battles that happen long before the external victories. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is not always inspiring, but it is the foundation of every meaningful achievement. And here's the truth you need to accept: discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. You are not born with it. You build it. You strengthen it every time you follow through on a promise you made to yourself. You reinforce it every time you choose long-term growth over short-term comfort. And the beautiful part is that discipline becomes easier the more you practice it. Eventually, what once required effort becomes automatic. What once felt heavy feels natural. What once felt overwhelming becomes your new standard. But discipline doesn't just change your habits, it changes your identity. When you prove to yourself that you can do hard things consistently, you begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone capable of achieving extraordinary things. That inner belief becomes unstoppable momentum. Your future will not be shaped by your intentions alone, but by your discipline. Not by what you hoped to do, but by what you repeatedly did. Discipline is the quiet force that shapes the strongest version of you. And once you embrace it, your entire life begins to shift in ways you never thought possible. There's a turning point in every person's life when they finally understand that success isn't built on intensity, it's built on consistency. Anyone can work hard for a day. Anyone can feel motivated for a week. Anyone can commit when life feels exciting. But the people who transform their lives are the ones who keep going long after the excitement fades. Because consistency is not about doing everything perfectly. It's about refusing to stop. It's about choosing progress over perfection. It's about showing up again and again, even when the results are invisible. Even when the process feels slow, even when your effort seems unnoticed. Think about how nature grows. Trees don't shoot up overnight. Rivers don't carve valleys in a single season. Mountains aren't shaped by one dramatic moment. Growth in nature happens through steady, persistent force. Small actions repeated over long periods. You are no different. Every small effort, every repeated choice, every act of consistency is shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you. Even when you can't see it, especially when you can't see it, because invisible progress is still progress. Most people quit not because they can't achieve their goals, but because they expect results faster than reality can deliver them. They plant a seed and get frustrated when it doesn't grow by next week. They start a habit and give up when the transformation isn't immediate. But consistency isn't about instant reward. It's about long-term alignment. It's about trusting the process enough to keep going even when the process doesn't give you immediate validation. Every time you choose consistency, you are voting for the person you wish to become. You're saying, I believe in the future I'm building. You're saying, I am worth the effort. You're saying, my dreams matter enough to keep going. And those votes accumulate until one day you wake up and realize you've become the person you once imagined. Not because of one big decision, but because of thousands of small, quiet ones. Consistency is powerful because it compounds. What starts as a tiny routine becomes a lifestyle. What begins as 5 minutes of effort becomes mastery. What once felt challenging becomes your new normal. And when consistency becomes identity, momentum becomes unstoppable. So if today feels slow, if progress feels invisible, if the journey feels repetitive, remind yourself this is what growth looks like. Not dramatic, not immediate, but steady, committed, and unstoppable. Your consistency today is building a future you'll be proud to live in. Keep going even on the days when no one sees the effort, especially on those days. That's when the greatest transformation is happening within you. There's a moment when you realize that success is less about talent, luck, or opportunity, and more about resilience, the ability to keep going when everything inside you wants to stop. Life will test you. It will push you to your limits. It will present obstacles that seem unfair, challenges that feel impossible, and moments when giving up feels like the only option. But resilience isn't something you magically have. It's something you build. It's forged in the fires of difficulty, strengthened every time you choose to rise instead of retreat, to act instead of freeze, to persist instead of quit. Think about the times you faced setbacks. Maybe you didn't get the result you expected. Maybe someone doubted you. Maybe the world seemed stacked against you. And in those moments, your mind probably whispered, this is too hard. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I'm not ready. That voice is normal, but it's not truth. Truth is that every challenge is a test of your commitment to yourself. Every obstacle is an opportunity to prove to yourself that your future matters more than your comfort. Every struggle is a chance to rehearse the strength you need to succeed. Resilience isn't about avoiding failure. It's about learning how to recover from it. Every time you fall, you learn something critical: what works, what doesn't, what you're capable of, and what you are willing to fight for. Every failure is a rehearsal for mastery. The people who ultimately succeed aren't those who never fail. They're the ones who keep coming back, who keep showing up, who keep believing in their potential no matter how many times life tries to convince them otherwise. And here's the secret most people overlook: resilience is built in the ordinary, everyday moments, not just the dramatic ones. It's built in how you respond to small disappointments, tiny setbacks, moments when your patience is tested or your motivation dips. It's built when you choose to keep going, even when no one is watching. Those daily acts of endurance accumulate into unshakable strength. So ask yourself, how are you responding to the difficulties in your life today? Are you letting them define you, or are you using them to refine you? Every challenge you face is an opportunity to practice resilience, to reinforce your identity as someone who doesn't quit, someone who rises, someone who becomes unstoppable through consistency, discipline, and unrelenting commitment. Your resilience today is the foundation of your greatness tomorrow. Now is the moment to realize that your future is not a gift. It's a reflection of what you choose to do every single day. Every habit you repeat, every decision you make, every action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. You cannot separate your present from your destiny. The way you show up today is not temporary, it is permanent in shaping your character. And the most powerful truth is this: you do not have to wait for someone else to validate your efforts, for luck to favor you, or for the perfect moment to arrive. You have everything you need to start building the person you were meant to be right now in this exact moment. Think about the routines you practice. Think about the commitments you honor or neglect. Think about how you respond when no one is watching, when it would be easier to quit or give in to comfort. Those are the moments that decide your future. Small choices repeated consistently form the architecture of your life. And when you finally embrace this, when you understand that you are not living by chance, but by design, everything changes. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger, more intentional, and unstoppable. You must understand that growth does not happen in grand gestures, but in ordinary, repeated acts of courage, focus, and discipline. Every morning you choose to rise and pursue what matters. Every time you resist distraction. Every time you practice patience and perseverance instead of surrendering to comfort. Every time you honor your promises to yourself. Those acts accumulate into momentum, and momentum becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. The truth is simple but unforgiving: you are the product of what you do daily. You are not defined by yesterday, by someone else's opinion, or by temporary setbacks. You are defined by the patterns you reinforce, the standards you enforce, and the consistency you demand from yourself. If you want a life of purpose, success, and fulfillment, you must stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for perfect conditions and start showing up today and every day after. So stand up. Make the choices that align with the person you want to become. Protect your time, protect your focus, protect your potential. Embrace the hard work that others avoid, knowing that each step shapes your identity and your destiny. And never forget, the life you dream about is not built in one moment. It is built one daily choice at a time. What you do today determines who you become tomorrow. Start now. Keep going. Become unstoppable. The future is in your hands, and it begins with what you choose to do today.